the federal government of Ethiopia and TPLF, Tigrayan People Liberation Front, have long stayed as antagonistic power. Both of them were accusing each other as illegitimate, and several efforts were made to fix their problem through a peaceful dialogue. However, while Ethiopians were watching for a peaceful solution, amicable solution to their dispute, TPLF had fired its first bullets against Ethiopian National Defense Force. And then the federal government of Ethiopia said the last red line had been violated. Here is the story. In the first days of November, TPLF and its affiliated forces attacked the northern command of Ethiopian National Defense Force, and this was a much proven fact, and even it was confirmed by TPLF leaders themselves. Following this, the federal government of Ethiopia launched a defensive and then offensive attack against TPLF junta in Tigray regional state. And now TPLF and the federal government of Ethiopia are in an open confrontation. And our media, Amhara Mass Media Agency, is following this scenario from the spot. And now we have learned that the federal government of Ethiopia is getting a great deal of victory over TPLF junta group. However, through the course of the operation, TPLF has committed lots of crimes against humanity, crimes against the nation. And today's ATV Special is going to talk on this important issue. So joining me is Merhatsedik Mekonnen, who is a senior expert at law and chief legal advisor to the president of Amhara regional state. Warm welcome, Mr. Merhatsedik.
Thank you, Zalalam.
Okay.
Thank you, viewers.
Let's start the talk from the very beginning, and the thing that drives the federal government of Ethiopia to launch a defensive and offensive attack against TPLF is TPLF's sudden and unexpected attack on the northern command of Ethiopian National Defense Force. Here the point is Ethiopian National Defense Force is a national force, Ethiopian force, which is meant to keep the sovereignty of the nation. And the puzzling thing was the forces that attacked the Ethiopian National Defense Force were first the members of the Ethiopian National Defense Force who were affiliated to TPLF party, and second were the Tigrayan Special Forces. And what kind of crime is it?
Quite a lot. Yeah, in the first place, the National Defense Force of this country is, for better reason, is a defense force of an African scale, I would say, because this defense force is also being deployed in various African hotspots to participate in the peacekeeping campaign under the sponsorship of the United Nations. This is to say that the force is not only an Ethiopian force, it is also, I would say, an African force. And it is this force which has been violently attacked by the Tigrayan Special Forces, and it is militia collaborators on November 3, 2020.
Yeah.
Well, when we begin with this commission, this was just an attack on the sovereignty of the country under the criminal code of the country, which was issued in 2005, particularly Article 445, 446, and 447, 448. All of them carry death penalties by establishing various crimes like infringement upon the national sovereignty and damaging the National Defense Force and high treason and the like. These are just domestic crimes that have been put out, enshrined in the country's domestic legislations. Apart from that, the Northern Command was not actively in the war situation when it was suddenly attacked in the night time.
Yeah.
Just trying to piece together the internal and external elements, even the internal elements of the defense force itself, just simply using the nationality, a language of certain elements who had really betrayed their brothers, joining them for almost more than 2 decades actually.
Yeah.
And serving the force and serving the Tigrayan population, protecting that part of the region from the neighboring force, from the invasion of external forces, and have even participated in the civilian campaigns like the doing away with the desert locust and even gathering harvests. And it's almost hand in glove. The force was, that part of the force was hand in glove with the Tigrayan population, I would say. And this was really a ruthless and heinous and cruel crime that was committed against the command. And of course it can be considered as a war crime as well, because that command was not engaged in the battle, and it was just a rest time.
Yeah,
and using that, they were attacked while sleeping, while resting, having spent the whole day working together, and of course believing that this country is their country, and believing that the Tigrayan force is almost part and parcel of the whole apparatus of the Ethiopian defense force. Even though that force is a regional force, it was always considered that it was part and parcel of the Ethiopian apparatus. No one expects this kind of attack from its own compatriots, and this is always taken as a war crime, as a military crime, as an infringement upon the national sovereignty, because the National Defense Force is the symbolic force which always explains the national sovereignty and territorial integrity of any country, for that matter. And going to other areas, because this force was attacked from various sections, not only from the Mekelle area. It was attacked from all compartments, from all angles, and it was at the same time, simultaneously, that was taking place. The invasion, the attack, the looting, and of course the weaponry was also plundered by this betrayal force. And it is unfortunate that all these have resulted in the terrorist acts, because the infrastructure was damaged, the whole infrastructure, I would say. The weaponry was looted, and the civilians were also attacked on various sections. This indiscriminate killing results in more than one criminal acts, both domestically and internationally.
Yeah. So following that treason, following that sudden attack, the federal government of Ethiopia has started law enforcement operation against TPLF junta in Tigray regional state. And because TPLF has touched the untouchable, because law has been violated, just the federal government of Ethiopia is in the business of enforcing the law. Yeah. However, in the process, we have learned that the Tigrayan People Liberation Front, TPLF, has recruited and participated children in the confrontation, in the operation. This is a fact-based, and we have a footage that shows, that signifies the fact that TPLF has recruited and participated children in the war. Let's have a look at the video.
All right.
Yeah.
Our leaders who recruited and engaged us in war were not there. In the actual war, they left children on fire. We didn't know anything. Nothing I know about the war. They pushed me to the war, and I am here today.
I didn't know with whom I was fighting with. They settled us in a camp and we didn't have information.
نقف تنستنك بوتا يجينا عدرنا
زي تخكنا خاني نرو زي نقطعمو.
I don't think war is necessary. I hated it. But even those who are younger than me were forced to join the war.
يمكن مطعمي حزننا.
Okay.
This is the most tragic situation.
Yeah.
This is the most tragic situation you will ever come across. And this is the completely flagrant violation of international law, particularly the Geneva Conventions. And not only the Geneva Conventions of 1949, in fact, most of the provisions of the Geneva Conventions have been incorporated in the Ethiopian Criminal Code, particularly Article 270M clearly prohibits the use and abuse of minor children below the age of 18 to be enlisted and conscripted into this kind of war or any armed conflict for that matter. Because children deserve special protection, special care on the part of not only the family but also the society and the government. But unfortunately this mafia group has been emboldened by its wicked history, actually, because it has passed through all these kinds of violent attacks and counterattacks. It has involved itself into lots of infrastructural attacks and of course civilian assaults. And this is one of the tragic manifestations that has been witnessed, on the part of the children soldiers, combatants who have participated in this unwarranted conflict situation. And that is what has, what they have been telling us. So this will have necessarily to bring this group, particularly the top leadership of this group, into a court of law, a domestic court of law. And even when Ethiopia is unable to do justice to this kind of criminal group, even the international community has an obligation to participate and to assist the country, of course, to take this force into a court of law. This is just a heinous crime condemned on an international level, on an international scale, actually.
We can see them physically, they're immature. Yeah. And we can understand from their voice, even they cannot express themselves and because they are young. And one of the saddest story of this conflict is TPLF's merciless attack on civilians, innocent people in the town of Maikadra. And Amhara Mass Media Agency talked to the survivors, the victims of TPLF attack, and let's have a look at that video.
Thank you.
Tigrayan Special Force attacked us. This force understood the fact that we are civilians, but they attacked us because they lose the war.
While I was in my home, closing the door, I heard a disturbing sound. Then I get out of my home and see my son bleeding. They robbed, looted, and killed us. We suffered this much because we are from Amhara ethnic group. They enforced my son to leave his home. They frightened him with their knife. And finally, they killed my son through cutting his body. It is so horrible. When I say, don't kill him, they rather injured me here.
Yeah, it's disturbing.
Oh, it's heartbreaking, is it not?
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking and striking. You would not expect any country to suffer this kind of wanton destruction, wanton attack on simple civilians who are just toiling masses, just using daily labor in order to maintain their life. And it's not easy. It's not easy to withstand this kind of situation. Yeah. And this is internationally condemnable. And actually, under the Geneva Conventions, just doing a direct attack on a larger scale on civilians who have no role in the conflict which is going on. I mean, they did not participate. These guys were just simply civilian population, civilian targets. They never participated in the war. They are not part of the national defense machinery, and they were just simply attacked for the reason that they were Amharas, as some of them tell us now, rightly. I mean, just when she was asked, well, she said it was simply for the reason that we were Amharas that we were wantonly attacked. And of course, this is under international law what we call genocide, actually, in the first place. Apart from a war crime, it also constitutes genocide. Genocide means, under international law, in 1948, of course, the Genocide Convention was adopted, and this is just a convention for the prevention and punishment of the crime of genocide. It simply means attacking people or part of any people to destroy it in whole or in part, just by killing members of that particular group, injuring, causing bodily or mental harm to the members of that particular group, and of course making life conditionally difficult for them to continue the survival of that particular group, both at the time of peace and at the time of war, for the simple reason that this particular group should be eliminated from the surface of Earth. I mean, it doesn't matter whether this group belongs to any nationality, using the citizenship, the nationality, the language, the race, the religion, the ethnicity of that particular group is the most important element for the cause of the crime. I mean, the criminals have no reason to attack this kind of people. It is just simply on the hatred based on certain ethnicity, religion, nationality, citizenship, race, language, whatever.
Yeah, it's disturbing to listen such sound. By the way, she was saying that I was attacked because I was Amhara, not because I was a criminal.
I mean, you wouldn't
not because I was suspected, but because I was Amhara.
It's unfortunate. I mean, this country belongs to all of us. I mean, both Amharas and the rest of other tribes, other nationalities, all other religious diversities are accommodated on an equal and indiscriminate manner, and no discrimination can take place against this group or that group for the simple reason of belonging to a certain identity or group. But TPLF's history is full of these horrors, actually. A documentation should be really fully prepared to describe and show to the future, to the succeeding generations, as to how genocide has already been taking place almost for 3-4 decades as of the establishment of the TPLF, as you said rightly, in 1967, because it officially declared without any shame and disgrace that the Amhara is the enemy of the Tigrayan people. Okay. Actually, TPLF is just the enemy not only of the Tigrayan but of all Ethiopians, and that is what is being witnessed now. When they really maimed, when they really killed through the agency of their special forces and the militia, upon the instruction of the mafia group, to perpetrate this kind of wanton destruction, using even simply silent weapons like knives and axes. The Maikadra situation really constitutes both a war crime because it was committed on civilians, against the civilians who have no role in the fighting, and it also establishes another important crime, as I said, the genocide convention, the genocide crime, because the Genocidal Act was also codified in the Ethiopian Criminal Code under Article 269, which immediately copies and reproduces what has been sanctioned under the Geneva Convention for the crime of, for the prevention and control and punishment of the crime of genocide. Because genocide is, as I said earlier, I have to repeat that for the audience, because this is just the most serious crime of important, crucial concern actually to the international community, which is always calculatedly perpetrated on any part of the population, just to destroy that population or part of it, for the simple reason it belongs to a certain race, to a certain identifiable group, like let's say it could be Wolkahit area, it could be the Amhara, it could be the Raya area. You know, that particular group needs to be abolished, destroyed, because it belongs to a certain language, to certain race, to certain religion. That's what they did, because most of them were Amharas. Even the Amharic speaking populations of other tribes was also suicided, I mean, taken aback. They were perpetrated, they were killed for the simple reason that they spoke Amharic, and that is the most heinous crime which is sanctioned both under international law, like a war crime, and as I said, the genocide, and it's also under 270 of the Ethiopian Criminal Code. It is just an attack, a direct attack on civilian persons and objects which are internationally protected, even in a war situation, because even when, for instance, even whenever you engage in a war situation, you will always follow the rules of conduct which are relevant to the war situation. Under the Geneva Conventions, you will not attack any civilian target, any civilian population, any civilian object which has nothing to do with the war situation. These were just daily laborers who have nothing to do. And they were originally settling in that area. This is their area. They will never go anywhere. But they were just simply attacked because the desperate group was too desperate, to leave the area, being compelled by the counterattack. And of course, this is a desperate action which they took, which unfortunately does not really save them from any criminal act, which is going to be, taking them to a court of law.
Okay. Now, crimes are committed, and it's unquestionable to anyone, and the government is in the business of enforcing the law. However, while the government is discharging its responsibility, some people, some countries, some organizations are influencing the Ethiopian government to have a negotiation with TPLF. And how far is that right? How far is that fair?
It's unfortunate. No country will ever tolerate, actually, this kind of infringement upon its sovereignty and upon its national defense force. I mean, that's what Ethiopia is doing as of November 3, 2020. No country will tolerate this kind of situation, actually. I mean, no country will just simply sit down and see, the victim of the National Defense Force, which is always meant to protect the country, being attacked by a certain rebel group, and we had to defend ourselves by any means, and we had to counterattack like we have been doing. And of course, this is just an internal disorder that has been taking place. It is not really a war which we have been conducting with a neighboring country. It is not an international war. It is just a law enforcement operation in the terms of the federal government. Although this is just a nickname for it, because this is just we are defending the country, whether we like it or not. It's only just, it's not only a law enforcement operation, we are just defending the country. no matter what kind of attack it is being perpetrated on us, I mean, this is just the alternative we are left with. I mean, we cannot deny. I mean, Russians did not tolerate the Chechen rebels when they were attacked by their own state government, any of the state governments of the Federation years back. And the federal government of Spain did not tolerate Catalonia when a unilateral referendum was held by a certain group just to dismember the country and take away and separate the Catalonia region. I think no country in the world had a very offensive voice against Spain and against Russia. And Ethiopia is not an exception. That's what we have been doing as of November 3. And secondly, I mean, this is just too late. I mean, TPLF is now trying, of course, to echo an outright on an international scale so that it could be saved from this country's situation. This is just, this amounts to buying time. I mean, TPLF is known, I mean, for almost 3 or 4 decades, what kind of terrorist organization it is, we know very well. And even its name is already listed in the global terrorism database. What we are expecting now is just to declare it, proscribe it to be a terrorist organization, you know, up to its finality, with all its vestiges of cruel ideology, you know, which simply criminalizes the country. And of course, it is just an anti-country force. And the international community needs to listen to our federal government, which says that it is defending the country, that it is trying to enforce the law, because the House of Federation already passed a very important resolution that TPLF is no longer a legitimate government. It just elected itself, and it was even left by having elected itself to stay in power until such time that we will have a genuine election throughout the country. But unfortunately, this chauvinist force did simply attack, and of course, like you know, just a rat trying to smell into the nose of a cat, it just simply started the war situation by attacking the northern command of the National Defense Force. And of course, we had to respond effectively, and we had to liberate the country from these cruel elements. And we need to end the war. I mean, we cannot sit down and simply being attacked by a rebel group and stay, and of course, you know, try to negotiate and end the war with a solution. What kind of solution are we going to, you know, what? I mean, the weaponry was looted, civilians were attacked, and the country's sovereignty was infringed upon. I mean, no country will ever sit down and negotiate with this kind of rebel group. I mean, this is just a war criminal act. And the international community has an obligation to cooperate under international law with the Ethiopian government, of course, to end this maddened situation in which we are involved without our own will, of course, to conduct the war. I mean, we have been trying. Of course, the duty of the Ethiopian government is always to do its level best, not really to damage the civilian population like what the rebel group is doing under, for instance, like the international airport, civilian airport of Aksum, which was really completely demolished by the rebel group forces, so that it will never be used even by the Tigrayan population, for which it claims it stands for. It's unfortunate, but the Ethiopian government is trying. Of course, the war could not have lasted this long. It is only just for the simple reasons that the government would like to try to save, to minimize the damage. Of course, this is a war situation, a conflict situation. One cannot really guarantee 100% safety, but unfortunately, you know, losses are here and there, separate losses are here and there, but at least now we are around the Mekelle area, and of course, this is a great town which really hosts more than 500,000 people, and of course we are calling upon the international community has also to cooperate to call upon this rebel group, the top group actually. All the special forces have been handing in their weapons and of course trying to cooperate and save themselves from the bombardment of the Ethiopian National Defense Force. But the rebel group, the desperate group, is still maintaining its presence in the bunkers of the Mekelle area and even using, unfortunately under international law, this is completely prohibited, and they have been sheltering themselves in various institutions like churches, other religious institutions and civilian institutions, so that these institutions will equally be attacked and the Ethiopian government will be condemned on an international scale. But this is a civilized country. Yeah. This is just one of the founding nations of the United Nations in 1951, and it has also ratified a number of international treaties, both humanitarian law treaties and international human rights law treaties, and trying to minimize the damage, and it will continue to minimize the damage. But no one really will arrest the hands of the Ethiopian government, and of course urge its officials to participate or just to negotiate and deal the saving of this multiple criminal group, because it has go to a court of law, not only a domestic court, but the international community has also to silence its voice and participate and cooperate with the Ethiopian government like it did with other countries. I mean, this is a country, of course, which is not always taken for granted on the part of the colonial countries. This is just a historically rich country, and of course the Battle of Adwa is known, and we have got a rich history which particularly Westerners do not like. Thank you.
Let me interrupt you here for the interest of time.
Please.
We have seen that TPLF committed, or at least being suspected of, huge crimes like terrorism, war crime, genocide and others. So do you think the world has speak enough about these crimes before trying to negotiate Ethiopian government with TPLF?
For that matter, it's not only the international community. Even Ethiopians themselves, even we ourselves, have a lot of assignment to still engage that this terrorist group should be named and proscribed as a terrorist organization. TPLF is known and sometimes sympathized on an international community, because a lot of diplomatic effort is being done by their fugitives, by their elements here and there, the world over, and they have been doing a lot of false rhetoric, and they are being attacked for the simple reason that they have been defending themselves, and they have been trying to convince the international community that they were attacked for the simple reason that they elected their government, even though that election is a fake theater. So the international community still has to speak on the positive side. I mean, it has to be fair enough, it has to be just enough when it speaks that both belligerents, like, just trying to equalize the legitimate government of the federal government and the illegitimate government of the Tigrayan authorities, they have been trying to equalize these two forces and telling us to come to terms through a negotiated deal. Actually, with whom are we going to negotiate? I mean, we were even trying. I mean, for the sake of the country's safety, for the sake of the population of Tigray, and for the pacification of the country as a whole. In fact, the federal government was more than patient. It tolerated every heinous crime that was committed by the TPLF forces. But TPLF is an ever terrorist force which needs to be proscribed as a terrorist organization, and the international community has also to know that. And of course, Ethiopia, apart from having signed the international terrorism acts of Shanghai Terrorism Convention of 2001, and of course the 1999 OAU and the 2004 African Protocol for the Prevention and Combating of Terrorism. And of course it has also issued a very recent an all-out domestic legislation, which is Proclamation 1176 to 2020, which is of course a proclamation to provide for the prevention and suppression of terrorism crimes. In fact, terrorism under Article 3 of this proclamation is just any act like killing people, injuring persons, destroying infrastructures like what the TPLF did against the international airport of Aksum, and for instance like launching an air attack, a missile attack, a rocket attack, on, on Bahar Dar and Gondar, for instance, like it did. I mean, more than 3 times, almost 3 times. They were attacking us from any area. They claimed, of course, to overcome. Unfortunately, they did not do any damage, but they were trying, of course, to provoke the Amhara region and the federal government. And this kind of action is always taken to be a terrorist act as well. Not only a war crime, it is also a terrorist act under Article 3 of the proclamation number 1120. And this results, of course, has to result in the proscription of this flagrant team, particularly its top leadership, to be, as an organization, a terrorist organization under proclamation 1176 2020, Article 18. Of course, the House of People's Representatives is empowered to prescribe this organization, a terrorist organization. It is to be late. I mean, you asked me to tell you a bit about the international community's resilience, but this resilience has also to be shared by ourselves, by the Ethiopian people, and by the Ethiopian government as well. Because, we cannot simply bring the elements, the top leadership, into a court of law, but we have to declare TPLF with its all vestiges of ideology, of course, to be named a terrorist organization. Of course, its property must be confiscated. And of course, the legal effect of all this proscription is, well, the TPLF will end up in being referred to as a terrorist organization wherever it goes, not only in Ethiopia, wherever it participates, because it will be eliminated for good once we declare it to be a terrorist organization, because it fulfills all the important ingredients of being proscribed as such.
Yeah, thank you so much, Merhatsedik Mekonnen, senior expert at law and chief legal advisor to the president of Amhara Regional State. And thank you for sharing your views regarding this important topic.
It has been my pleasure, in fact, to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time and for your dedication. Dear viewers, that brings us to the end of our program for today. And please do stay with the rest of the programs. See you next time.